Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Today is a special class, and I want to say hello in general to everyone in the chatmosphere. I will come and hang out and do the individual greetings, but I want to keep this brief because I want to bring on our special, I'm saying professor today, okay? A lot of you know his work, and that's what I love. We tend to find the same people at, it seems like, similar times. So a few of you have contacted me and you're really excited about today's class. I'm going to call it, it's a master class. Okay, so get yourselves ready. I am ready. I have a brand new book. Okay, you know how I know I'm going to be taking notes. Okay, but I want to pay attention as well. So I want to welcome Jason Breshears of Archaics, and I want to have a very, just organic, of course, conversation with him and just have him share his wealth of knowledge. He is very generous in what he does share. If you know of his website, you know how he has just a plethora of research. It is so advanced that I will say I probably cannot find a scholar in anybody's university anywhere on this earth plane that would have read as much information on the historical chronology of just this earth realm, history of mankind. Okay, so I will leave information on how you can get to his website, and you can spend a lot of time. It is like seriously going to school. Okay, so I'm going to bring Jason on right now, and let's welcome him. Well, hello, Jason. How are you?
Well, hey, thank you. Hey, I'm really feeling your energy. I feel welcome.
Good, good. Well, I am so honored that you accepted my invitation to talk to this lovely, I don't know what you want, I call them the chatmosphere. And we have been together for a few years, and we know each other from other platforms, and it's just a big, beautiful family. You'll be welcomed here, and a lot of them already know your work. So what I want to do in this, live stream is I want to make other people aware of your work, that might not have learned about you. And I love your testimony, I want to say. And by the way, your van rants are everything. Okay.
Yeah.
I love them. Okay. And it's something about ranting. Okay, Jason, like when I have my rants, the chatmosphere loves it. And when I'm thinking, oh my God, they're going to just tune out, they actually want me to rant. And I think there's something in ranting that is so much honesty that comes out. Right. And I think people, they feel like you're speaking for them. Right.
Yeah. I get that. I get that.
It's great. So, hey, listen, if you have one of your Modelos, I see that you enjoy Modelo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a Texan thing?
Well, it's a thing when Corona Light's just not enough anymore. That's what it is. It's made by the exact same company. And even
Oh.
though I'm a Texan, I like Mexican beers. And
Mhm.
really, if I lived up north, I probably wouldn't drink beer. Uh, here in the South, the humidity in Texas, north of Houston, and the heat that we have 10 months out of the year, beer just replaces all the salt and everything that I lose sweating here in
Oh.
Texas. Because
Mhm.
I stay outdoors a lot.
Mhm.
When I'm indoors doing podcasts and all that, it's not my normal routine. I'm normally an outside guy, and
Oh.
so yeah, beer just replaces all that. And hey, you know what? My studio's not immune to it. I got an empty bottle right here.
Well, listen, I told the Chatmosphere when I posted that we would do this, I am breaking out. Now, you know how you talk about breaking with breaking patterns, okay? So
Yeah,
I'm going to break a
breaking
pattern.
pattern.
Yeah, I'm going to break a pattern right now. I haven't had absinthe. I do a little absinthe ritual routine, I guess. So I'm going to do a little
Mhm.
absinthe while you
Right,
are. I wanted to see, and I'm doing the whole thing like I do because we're going
right.
back on a timeline, and for some reason, we're really feeling the 1800s in a way that we like it. We're not sure. It's kind of sketchy. And then
Right.
with you letting us know about 1902, we want to get into a little bit of that. And, the whole absinthe thing, you could tell me what you know or what you feel about the prohibition of it. I'm looking at it as a medicinal. So I'm
Mhm.
going to be pouring I'm going to let the, water drip on it. I have the whole thing, Jason. I want to show you. This is a special. See,
Oh
look, I've got
wow,
a whole fountain.
wow.
It's all set up, and I'm going to do like the tradition of letting the sugar cube. And since we talk about archaeology, we are mud flooders, we are flat earthers, we are tinfoil hat turban. We welcome all. We don't care about your gender, your race, your creed, your color. We're just a loving family. So I'm going to do a little architectural sugar cube.
Right.
And I want you, please, to share your testimony. I know you do this a lot too, Jason. I don't want to like get on your nerves where you're like, keep answering the same thing over and over. But you know what? I think testimonies are very powerful, and yours is extremely powerful. I was very inspired because I love a good story of redemption, and that's how I see your testimony. It is filled with redemptive qualities, and just the fact that the human spirit is so resilient. You did
Good.
not give up while you were, in your probably darkest moments, I would think. But you did something that many would not have done. So I would like you to just share with us, anybody who doesn't know your testimony, can you share a little bit about how you came to want to know so much about the history and when you knew something was off about the timeline? So I want you
Well,
to open up with that.
uh, my discoveries in any anomalies in history and like time dilations, maybe history had been scrubbed. These are late in my research. This My actual research from the beginning was to prove my fundamentalist Southern Baptist roots. I wanted to prove from secular history that what I had been raised to believe was true. This is what set me in motion. Now, during the period of my incarceration, I was not a pillar of piety. I was totally immersed into prison culture because it was known from early on. I was 17 years old when I went in. It was known early on that I did have a switch. I deserved to be incarcerated. It's just Texas had a deal where they sent a lot of people to prison on hyperinflated sentences, but because it was understood that back then it was called the revolving door. Judges and prosecutors knew that it doesn't matter if we give somebody a 60-year sentence; they're going to be out in 2.5 years anyway. This is what was happening in 1987, 88, 89. I went to prison in 1990. I was 17 years old, and they gave hyperinflated sentences because of the revolving door. They only had a limited number of prisons to house people, so guys were going to prison and getting out on all kinds of heinous offenses within a very short period of time. So this set a political climate in Texas, and a lot of us fell under that. The problem is 5 years after I went to prison, Bush became the governor of Texas. He changed the whole criminal justice system. he put a lock on the revolving door. Now, we were sentenced under what was called the quarter law. And under the quarter law, you do 25% of your sentence. Under good behavior, you're released back onto the streets to serve the rest of your time on parole. This is what we all understood when we were incarcerated at that period of time. So Bush changed that. He stopped doing that, and now we had to do most of our sentences under his new parole laws. When we fought it in court and lost, we don't know how Governor Bush was allowed to retroactively implement laws to violate constitutional rights. It had never been allowed for before. Texas and California set a precedent. Other states had already outlawed it, but Governor Bush got away with it. And then he became the president, and then it was over with. We lost every lawsuit after that. Well, every time we received new letters from our attorneys, because it was a joint lawsuit, there were thousands of us involved in this litigation. Well, the more and more bad news that came back to us, and I realized, okay, well, I've already been in prison 7 years. I said, and now they're telling me I'm probably going to do another 21 years. Well, of course. You take a 17-year-old off the streets and tell him he's going to do a finite amount of time and that he's going to be out before he's 24, 25 years old and he still has his life ahead of him. That 17-year-old 7 years later is going to be fundamentally different when that time has passed and he lived up to what he was supposed to, and you employed a bait and switch tactic. And now that 7 years doesn't mean anything because now you're telling him he's got to do probably 14 to 21 more. This is what happened to me. So I went into a dark spell. I became very violent. I was totally immersed in prison culture. My entire body is covered from tattoos from around my neck all the way to my feet. I wear the badges of the experiences that I had in prison. At the same time that I am immersed in prison culture, and I basically become a shot caller, and people look up to me not just for my intellect, but because when something needs to be done, I was going to do it. And I just had that fearlessness. I just didn't care. Consequences did not mean anything for me anymore because there are no disciplinary cases that the administrators could give me anymore that's going to be worse than making me serve 21 more years. I didn't care. So while I was sitting in prison with all hope snatched away from me, realizing I'm not going to get out of prison until my 40s, I didn't care. Now I started doing what I wanted to do with whoever I wanted to do it with. I was entering in and out of relationships with female officers. I was doing every single thing that you're not supposed to be doing, and there was nothing they could do for me. So they removed me from minimum security and they put me on medium security, which basically isolated which prisons I was allowed to live on now. Once they did that, of course I didn't care anymore. I went further down. As I'm going down, though, in the prison culture, my prestige is going up. I'm fearless. I don't give a damn, and I'm also very knowledgeable. I am since I was a little kid. I've been reading books. That's one thing my family made me do. We had to go to a public library every single week, and we had to get 2 books. One of them was for my enjoyment. The other one had to be nonfiction, and I had to be able to give a dissertation at the end of the week about what I had learned and what I had read. My family basically prepared me for the life I live. Now, they didn't know that I was going to take such a dark turn. They didn't know that. Now, I have never claimed innocence. I am not innocent. I do claim that by virtue of my environment, I basically assumed all the responsibilities of someone who was put into my position. I did that. I basically became the voice for a lot of prisoners who had an inability to communicate with the administrators. When it was realized that I had a communication out, that I was very good at communicating ideas, because prisoners are not an easy group to communicate to. We're talking about people with a lot of anger and a lot of hatred. People have been forced, they're backed into a corner. Believe me, about 50% of the guys I met in prison were just good guys caught up in a bad way. They shouldn't have been there, and they shouldn't have been there as long. But people go through dark, basically psychological times when they are pretty much forgotten. And this is what prison culture is. A bunch of guys or a bunch of women together who have realized, okay, look, this is the situation we find ourselves in. We've basically been forgotten. Nobody outside in the outside world really understands what's happened to us. It's not that we've been incarcerated. It's that we've been incarcerated, and the very perimeters by which our hopes were forged on have been taken from us legally. This is what happens. It happens in every state. This isn't just Texas. It happens in every state. We call it bait and switch. because that's exactly what it is. We are induced by fear to sign paperwork to say that we're totally guilty for everything that we're accused of when we're not. But they throw such a good deal out that, okay, look, if I fight this in court, I'm going to get a life sentence because I have no money and I have no attorney. I have no one who's going to really fight my case. They're going to give me a public defender, and the public defender works with the prosecutors and judges on a weekly basis. So I already know what's going to happen to me if I fight this case. So it's better if I just go ahead and say, look, okay, I did participate with these guys. I was with them. I did that. I'll sign for this time right here because you're promising me basically I'm going to get out with good behavior at a certain time and I can live the rest of my life in peace. This is the bait and switch we all fall for, and it's not true. These prosecutors know in Texas that when guys sign this paperwork, the parole board does not have to honor it. Those are the people that let us out, not the prosecutors. So when we go to prison and we become monsters and we become things that other people can't really identify and they don't understand, why are these guys doing that? Why are they rioting? Why are they fighting? Why are they beating up officers? Why are they getting caught with knives and cell phones? Don't they want to come home? And the blame is always put on the prisoner when you don't realize the prisoner's only lashing out because he's got no other alternative. Everything's been taken from him. And when you use the law to take away the hopes of people who have signed away their lives because you needed you asked them to sign this paperwork. This paperwork was supposed to guarantee that they get out on a certain time, but it's not true. So when they go to prison and then they find out that paperwork they signed was just to get them in the prison so they could work indefinitely for the rest of their life in manufacturing and logistics and make the state of Texas a tremendous amount of money because they don't pay their prisoners. When people don't know this whole system that's going on, this is what I was in. When I realized very early on that this was an indentured servitude system and that the state lawmakers were all, I found out, I had people sending me a lot of really good data from the internet. Well, around 1995, 96, and 97, I started studying manufacturing logistics, and I realized, damn, the very state lawmakers that pass these laws are the ones that are funding, and they are the shareholders of TCI Industries, which governs the whole prison system. So it's a business decision. You had prosecutors had me sign a document so you could enslave me in a system. When I figured all this out, I went postal. There wasn't a warden, a lieutenant, sergeant, no COs. There was no other inmates that could talk any sense to me. When I made that executive decision that they basically got me effed up, I became the person in prison that I wanted to be. I became shot caller. I basically told guys on the cell block, this is how it's going to be. We're going to get along. If not, there's going to be consequences. I was the guy that was willing to put some steel in you if you didn't obey. I wanted to keep the peace because all I ever wanted to do was read books and research. And if you interfered with that, I would hurt you. And this went on for a very long period of time, and I built up a reputation. And there are many guys who were in prison with me that know me and will tell you, and you can interview them. They will tell you that I was basically a man of peace, but I would poke holes in you if you were causing trouble. And like I didn't tolerate bullies. Bullies are not tolerated. There's nobody on the cell block that is too big to take down because we have equalizers. All kinds of nice, interesting weapons are in prison. So I had basically pretty much lost it. I did. For a long period of time, I had lost it. I had become like a Robin Hood type, where new guys come into the prison system knew, hey man, that's the guy you need to talk to. That's Jason. He's been here forever. Here's a guy. He's going to set you straight. And they would come, new guys would come talk to me. And then when I find out when some older veteran was trying to do something to him, and it would fall on me to fix the situation. And sometimes those situations weren't fixable. It's because a lot of times when new guys come to prison, you have to let them suffer the consequences of their decisions. We can only tell them, hey, look, if you go on that cell block with that guy, you don't know what he's really inviting you to. If something happens to you over there, you can't undo that. So, and if you don't want to admit what happened to you to other people, they can't fix it. So now you're in a feedback loop and you're going to continue doing what you don't want to do because you can't tell nobody what you did. So we would educate people. And I did this. Well, wardens and administrators know me. Jason Breshears, I'm a known name in Texas prison. They remember me, and I spent 26 years and 48 days there. And I had many, many meetings with upper-level administrators when they realized that I had such a vocal power over the population. Because each prison has in between 2,000 and 5,000 prisoners. And many times there was all kinds of things going on cell blocks. And wardens and majors would call me out, say, "Hey man, check this out. I know you're not going to tell us who's involved or what's going on, but can you give us an idea of basically what people are mad at right now? Because I don't need any of my officers banged up or stabbed or none of that stuff. Is there something that we can do to settle the situation?" And I was in that mediator position. When racial shit went on, I was the first one in the backyard, because talking things 90% of the time, if it's white and black or white and Hispanic or black and Hispanic, whatever's going on in the Texas prison system, 90% of the time, if you are respectful and diplomatic, it can be solved just like that. Wow. Only about 10% of the time is it ever going to erupt in violence. And in that 10% of the time, it's about 90% of the time of that 10% that violence can be quarantined to just the 2 or 3 individuals who have a problem. We don't need to involve everybody else. This doesn't need to be racial. It's still personal. Let's keep it that way. So this is what I did in prison for a very long period of time, because I knew that only by keeping the peace in any environment that I was in is the only way I'm going to be able to do what I was really trying to do. And that was just absorb data, absorb information. I can't have all the black guys mad at me when they got some really awesome books they're ordering from the free world and they're in a possession. You know what I mean? And they want to trade with me, but if there's a racial barrier and we're not getting along, that stops all that. I can't have the Hispanics getting into with me, because they're going to wire up the blacks, and it's going to be blacks and Hispanics against white guys. So there's a lot of politics. Racial politics is very real in prison. And I had to navigate through all that in order to get the things I want, like this, like very old 200-year-old books, like these. Oh, wow. I collect these. Yes, this is from 1813. It is a book on ancient inventions and ancient all kinds of, basically, they don't even write books like this anymore. You would not believe, small print, smaller print than the Bible. But the premise of this book from 1813, this is originally, it's not a reprint, this is from the year 1813. But the premise of this book is the origin of surgery. But in order to get to the origin of medical surgery, he talked about the entire history of the world and all its inventions and all that. And what's in this book can't be read in books today. Okay. Yeah, we've gone through resets since this book was lost in somebody's attic. So this is that's what I did in prison. In prison, I went through all the oldest books that I could find. This was given to me by a Archaics YouTube sub. Somebody who has an appreciation for the fact that I appreciate old books. They sent this to me from their family library. Oh wow, yeah, that's crazy.
That's amazing, because let me just. This is like, how can I follow up with my little paperback book? But I just want to make a point, Jason, that this book right here, Back to Eden, you're probably familiar with. Probably other people. You see how thick it is?
It's a pretty big book.
Yeah, it's a pretty big book. My grandfather used to carry it under his arm like a Bible. He was a medicine man, but among other things. But that book, he had one. I think he had an original, and it was lost in my family, so I had to buy one at Whole Foods. Okay, so I can appreciate with what you're saying, because the one thing I told my cousin, if she's even listening, okay, I want that book if you find it. Okay, I want Pop-Up's book, because the people that have these books in their personal libraries or attics or anything like that, if you do have good books like that, I just want to say, reach out to Jason. Okay, you may have something that Aunt Tilly has in the attic. Reach out to someone like him, and definitely donate that to a person who's going to totally respect the originality and will use it to further the cause of mankind. I'll even just go out on a limb and say that. But I was telling my cousin that I really want her to find that book. They change the information. And when you think about a book like Back to Eden that is about health and wellness and some of the old remedies and things like that, that this book that I just showed you doesn't have what the original has, right? I'm sure. And so I can appreciate that so much. And I want to talk about, before I get into, because I want to get into some pretty hot topics, like definitely the race thing, which you touched on. But one of the things that you did touch on, Jason, in terms of the resets. That is something that comes up a lot in our little group here. Now, you've mentioned that there are several resets. You can jump right on into the deep end with a lot of us because we have been, digging around in this area. I love that you did something for me, and I'm sure many others. You have helped us to sort out and pinpoint the year of question, 1902. So I would like you to start out with 1902 while I prepare my absinthe. And can you share with us the significance of that year? Because again, I know Tina, the truth seeker, do you hear what I'm saying? In 1902, Jason has pinpointed that was that. Am I saying it right? The last reset,
It's
or Phoenix event. I'm sorry.
it was the last Phoenix year, and it was very significant what happened that year. But a reset isn't a single year you can pinpoint. It actually began in 1890, and it was a whole bunch of significant shifts that all in history look independent, but they're not. Once you look at it ex post facto from a distance in retrospect, you see exactly the manipulation that happened. It's gradual, but it's epic. So 1902 was a Phoenix year, and so was 1764 and 1626, and the next one's going to be 2040. We know the reset years because they are always 138 years apart in an unbroken timeline that goes all the way back to 3895 BC. When that reset was so horrific that it caused a new heavens and a new earth, and in the book of Genesis calls it basically the creation event. This was the Edenic event. It started the 1656 years of the vapor canopy world, or the pre-flood world of Genesis, which is 1,656 years. That was year one of an ancient calendar, used to be known as the Old Hebraic calendar. It was also known as the Old Annus Mundi calendar from Alexandria, Egypt. And that's what the Phoenix timeline is on. But the rabbinical Jews altered their own calendar because they didn't like the way Christians were interpreting the arithmetic in the book of Daniel to show that Jesus may have been the Jewish Messiah. Rabbis got really ticked off about that after the Bar Kokhba rebellion, and they admitted in their own Talmud that they changed the calendar by 133 years to throw the Christians off. This is why today's Jewish calendar is 133 to 134 years difference than the Phoenix calendar and the Annus Mundi calendar. Like I'll give you an example. This year is 5916 Annus Mundi, or the Old Hebrew system. It is 5,916 years since the Phoenix reset of 3895 BC. That was year one of the pre-flood world. You have to see it in charts. I provide hundreds of charts to show everybody exactly how all the arithmetic works, because this arithmetic and these charts, that's what I add in the details of things like Anaximander, Thales of Miletus, Aristarchus, and I show what they said about the calendars, and every bit of it fits in. Then the old rabbis like Moses Maimonides, Rashi, old Arabic Muslim and Jewish chronologies, how they all fit absolutely perfect. Then modern scholars like a U.S. cryptologist R.A. Boulay, his dates for ancient times are absolutely perfect with the system. When we take all these chronologies from around the world, going back 400 and 500 years, even to Archbishop James Ussher, he got the Annus Mundi dates absolutely right, but he went by Jewish reckoning when he put the AD dates in. So Ussher, who wrote his book 400 years ago, is 133 years off on every date that he put for Anno Domini AD. He fell victim to he didn't know, but 400 years ago when he did his chronology, that the Jews after the Bar Kokhba rebellion had altered their own calendar just to throw off Christians. So what they did worked on him because he didn't have those sources. He had never read the Talmud and didn't know. So that's the value of the Phoenix. Knowing the Phoenix resets, that's the value, because it's every 138 years. In ancient times in Egypt, Phoenix was regarded by the goddess culture of ancient Egypt. I can't pronounce her name. Sekhmet, something is Sekhmet or something like that.
Is it Sekhmet? Is she the cat? Is that the black
Yes,
cat segment?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
yeah,
Her,
yeah.
her holy symbol was the phoenix palm, and she used phoenix palms to reckon the times. And in ancient Egypt, the phoenix, the Benben stone, which is the stone that is believed to go on top of the Great Pyramid, the Benben stone was found in the desert. So what the ancient Egyptians did is they didn't want to touch it. They didn't want this belongs to the gods, and they didn't have the ability to pick it up and put it on the pyramid. So what they did is they built a huge structure around the Benben stone in the ancient city where the Greeks call Heliopolis. We know it from the archaeological record as Anu. It's Annu. Later on, it was called On in Egypt. It's the ancient Egyptian city of On, O-N. The Greeks called it Heliopolis. That structure was called the Mansion of the Phoenix. And the ancient Egyptians of Lower Egypt used to regard that goddess and consider the phoenix as keeper of the calendar. They knew that even though the phoenix was destructive, they also recognized there was another force in this world that was lying to them. And it was causing all kinds of upheavals like volcanoes and floods, tsunamis, earthquakes, but they knew those were all caused by the liar, because the liar wasn't on the Phoenix timeline. The Phoenix timeline, when those events happened, the sun darkened, red mud fell from the sky, when the ground vibrated, when there was a horn blast from the sky, sometimes it was a blue sky, and just all these weird things happened, and there was nothing in the sky to block the sun, and yet the sun goes black. The moon turns dark red, and then 2 or 3 hours later, red sand, red dust, and red mud covers the entire kingdom. These were Phoenix episodes, and they were very well documented. I have two published books that go into extreme detail of all the historical records that talk about this. Since those books have been published, I have made so many new discoveries that I just released them in YouTube videos. I mean, so many new discoveries that I was able to fill a 30-minute video with just a bunch of stuff multiple times. Right. And I have to temper that with informing you that it is widely known that I do not release YouTube videos as filler. You're not going to watch any of my videos and see me just going random, just trying to fill in a 20 or 30. My videos start with nothing but data. I'm just packed with data. And if I can get it all out in 22 minutes, then the video's over in 22 minutes. I feel no need for all the fluffer. I don't need all that, because I'm already overwhelming people. I don't need to bore them. So
you will never bore us. Now, okay, this is wonderful, because one of the things that I'm hearing also in what you're saying, and you've heard the term mud flood. I don't know if you ascribe to some of the same terms. I'll use them for lack of better terms, because I'm not married to a term right now. I now am just so humbled at the fact, and I feel that, this is a humbling of a lot of us, that we thought we knew things. We thought we were sure about things. And this is a time of humbling where, a lot of us are admitting that we just don't know. And we are open to hearing from a scholar, especially one on your caliber who has done the work, has the receipts, as they say. I feel that people should be so open to listening to what you have learned and what you've gathered from these sources. I mean, these are hard sources you cite because you read the books, so I hear the red mud, or and that's one of the things with the mud floods we didn't understand. They call it liquefaction, things like that. But when you explain that this red mud actually rained down, and so basically covered up whole, like, would I be correct in saying covering up whole continents?
Well, it covered up Australia. I mean, that's where all the red dust and red sand. Australia's packed with it. But Phoenix events in Australia have gone unrecorded because there was no one there for thousands of years to actually document them. But we know, because we see the red mud and red sand all over Australia. But where they got that topography is absolutely mysterious. But this same red mud and red sand was documented in 1902 by scientists all around the world after it was already seen by telescope, basically floating through the inner system. Yeah, there were many, many scientific reports of dust veils passing through the inner system, and some of them obscured Venus. They couldn't even see Venus anymore. This great cloud great dark cloud was just moving through the solar. I want to call it solar system, even though I believe everything in the sky is simulated. But when scientists are looking through telescopes, the simulacrum will feed them the imagery that they are expecting to see. And all the time, if they're expecting to see that Mercury has scarring on one side because they've done some type of spectrographic analysis, taking pictures of the sky, then they download the data into different filtering systems in their computers, and it breaks down the spectrum. And scientists say, okay, they haven't optically with a telescope ever looked at the surface of Mercury, but they already have all these protocols lined up explaining, okay, well, this color means this color means this. There's hydrogen in the atmosphere. Well, this right here must be a highly crystalline structure. That's where this light comes from. This is how astronomers interpret the sky. They interpret through many filters that have been run through computer systems that tell them what the spectrographic analysis is. This is what a lot of people don't realize. They don't see these things in a telescope. There are no telescopes in the world that can look at Mercury and see any geographical features on Mercury. So they developed a system by which light from the spectrum that is detected in the pictures gives them data. And they publish whole monographs and books about how true this is and how it's been verified. Now, and this is what astronomy is. Astronomy is a pile of bullshit. It's a pile of lies. That's what it is.
Amen. And you know, they even say it, Jason. You know that already, right? They'll say this is a computer-generated image, and I'm like, why didn't I see that all these years? Like they have been duping us, like in real time, and just letting us know. On the other hand, but in terms of now, I want to go back to something else you said about the, you know. I've been binging out on your videos. Okay. So you mentioned something was fascinating about the moon. And I know that a lot of women that follow the truth movement, some of them are into the goddess thing. I'm a Christian, okay? And I, have been programmed. I'll say this is my background, my upbringing. I've had my, as they call them, my prodigal years, my backsliding, things like I go back and forth. I'm just like, I fell away like right before 2020. Then I got back into like, going back into my faith. But you know what? My thing is this, the more that we are willing to learn, and I feel that anyone's faith or belief should be able to stand up to the scrutiny of debate, just questioning it. I believe that if it is your faith and your belief, you should be able to stand and have it in question, defend it, and not be triggered emotionally. That's not a defense for anything. You know what I'm saying? So I'm willing to listen, because when I went to the colleges and universities, I didn't go and check with my professors like, what is your belief system? They were teaching me and programming me all these years, and I didn't question where their spirituality was. So I feel that it's disingenuous of, say, Christians to maybe attack anything that like someone like you would be sharing, because again, we shouldn't be that thin-skinned, right, with our faith.
Listen, I have to interject here, because the attacks that I receive on a daily basis in my emails and in comments that I'm always removing from my YouTube channel are not from Christians. Yes, I have had a few incidents where Christians were triggered, but that's not where the attacks come from. The people attacking me are straight from academia. I get some really vilifying emails and comments on YouTube. Especially, I can tell from syntax how educated a person is. The way, it's not the words you use, it's how you put them together. It's how abbreviated you make a very convoluted argument. If your argument is complex, but you use a very minimal amount of words to do it, I know you have a pretty good education. So when I read these comments and I see these guys and what they say, and I'm like, okay, this is a very intelligent individual. And they ask me these questions. Sometimes they're trying to trigger a response by which they can always say, "Oh, Jason said this," and I know what they're trying to do. So I'll just remove them. I just hide the user from the channel. They can still watch my videos. They can still do all that, but I'm not entertaining that anymore.
I don't blame you.
And I get some that ask me questions that, okay, you may come from academia and I'm not, but you just asked me a question that if the shoe was on the other foot, you wouldn't be able to answer it either. So why are you holding, why are you, I mean, you can't prove to me God exists. So little things like this, I'm getting a lot of this from very, very intelligent people. And it was really shocking because I really expected people coming from a religious background would not be on board, but it's just the opposite. It's people from people who consider themselves to be very educated, who are offended with simulation theory. They're offended with the fact that I am showing. They don't want to attack my sources. I haven't had anybody go check my sources and tell me that I'm wrong. They attack my conclusion. But my conclusions are simple. The history of the world exhibits the traits of a mathematical construct because the events that I have recorded are too perfectly precise that there is no way they could have ever happened naturally. And because I'm only looking at these things as an observer ex post facto from now looking into the past, then there's a really good chance none of those events ever happened. But I have to study it anyway because someone wanted me to believe these things. So what is the real message that they're hiding? This is why I study history, not because I believe those events occurred, because I believe that the truth is found in the construct itself. Where we are going is found out by where we have been presented to have been. I've isolated so many things about the past that had to have been artificial, could not have been real. Right. So by isolating those things and being able to put them aside, I can now remove all the dressings and dross and just look at the architecture of arithmetic that's left behind, which is calendars. And if we were ever imprisoned by anything, it is timekeeping systems. This is what I have found over and over and over. And this is why I find it so unusual that people from intelligent backgrounds, people who consider themselves to be very educated, are taking offense over the fact that I believe that not only is our history artificial, but every time you go in your backyard and you look up, you're looking into a multi-tiered hologram. None of that's there. It's there for you to believe it's there. You are inside a very beautiful construct, but that construct is deceitful. This is what we have to pay attention to, because there's an old saying, and I know you've heard it, the devil is in the details. Yes. So listen, it's not as simple as everything being artificial. It's not that simple. Right. We have to study the things that basically promote that artificiality by such a convincing, basically, let me reword this. When we look into the sky, it's not just a bunch of random patterns by which we could build a construct. The patterns have a focus. That focus shows me an intent. This is the problem I have. And here's another weird thing. I get a lot of flack from flat earthers. Figure that one out. Really? I trigger flat earthers on a daily basis. Listen.
I'm surprised.
Well, hold on, check this out. I mean, from my this goes in with what I'm talking about now. Okay, flat Earth research is going to take you to a destination. In order to get to that destination, you're gonna find all kinds about you're gonna learn about the Morley experiments. You're gonna learn about zetetic astronomy. You're gonna sooner or later you're gonna come into contact with Eric Dubai's information. You're gonna read Gleason. I have Gleason right here. This is Gleason's book from 1890s right here.
Oh,
Gleason,
wow.
In the 1890s, this book is absolutely packed with scientific experimentation showing that there is absolutely no mathematical evidence of curvature anywhere in our world. This is nothing but an entire book of science from the 1890s. Oh, and the way men thought back then are not like today. Right. So you would think a lot of people from the flat Earth community would be on board. Okay.
Right. I would think, yeah.
To me, flat Earth it's basically a conduit. It's not the destination, because the more you fall in love with the flat Earth concept and you fully embrace it, you're stuck in a dome. There's nowhere to go. You have completely imprisoned yourself within an intellectual construct that is right in everything that you assert, everything that you can show. All your experiments have imprisoned you. There's nowhere else to go. You can't come up with a cosmology that can even come up with why that dome is there. What's under the dome? How did the dome get there? When things pass in and out of the dome, as we know from the historical record has happened, where are those portals and those gates? And a portal necessarily infers the existence to another realm. So flat Earth is an end. It is not a means. So I've left it. I have totally abandoned it. I'm on board. Mathematically, we live on a flat plane. I'm good with that. Mathematically, the entire realm of the sky is dome-shaped, and it's a holographic projection. We may be trapped inside the inside of a Dyson shell, and the entire solid Dyson shell, we might be here, and the Dyson shell's out here, and everything in between is holographic projection of a cosmos that's absolutely beautiful. So technologically advanced that the more we study it with a telescope, the further we see, the more it feeds us, because that's all it's doing. It's feeding us light photons, and we're interpreting that as more worlds, more universes, more galaxies, more quasars, more pulsars, all that. So now, flat earthers, they get triggered, but I've moved away from that. In simulation theory, I'm baffled that people haven't made the connection yet. Okay, the sun is not a diamond. The sun is not it's not a trigon. The sun is not any oblate shape. It's not egg-shaped. The sun is circular. I'm not going to say a sphere because I haven't seen the other side of it, but it's circular. Okay, the moon is the same way. Okay, the greatest hint flat earthers need to pay attention to, the greatest hint is that from the surface of our world, we have only ever seen one side of the moon. That one side of the moon never changes. Therefore, the moon is not spinning, it's not rotating, it's not doing it. It's fixed. It's going over. The second clue is if an object in geometry is not moving and rotating and fixed, how in the hell is it producing lunar phases? Why do we see the crescent that's supposed to be the reflection of sunlight? And when the sun is in a certain position, we see the crescent gets bigger and bigger. When the sun is more away from its position, the sliver gets smaller and smaller. We have a holographic projection that is emanating a lie. It is because the moon does not reflect light. It has already been conclusively shown by many researchers that it's a luminary and that it's producing light. And the light it produces is negative. That light has a negative feel toward plants. It's like a black light, but it shows up optically to us as very bright. But that is not reflected solar light. The sunlight is totally different. Moonlight has a dark aspect to it, almost like a sinister aspect to it. It's like a negative type light that's still optically shown through the central nervous system. It's very, very unusual. But the moon is projecting light, and there have been examples when people photographed the moon, and the dark part of the moon in the photograph, stars were showing through it. That means it's a hologram. And for some reason, from that one vantage point, that hologram wasn't solid on that side to block out what was behind it. Because what in the hologram further away were more luminaries. Because that's my theory, that the stars are on a tier of holography that is higher than the sun and the moon. And then there's other objects that are on another tier of holography that's even higher, which gives us our dimension. Two different holographic overlapping fields that give us this great dimension of a cosmos and all that. But it's all holography. It's all technologically advanced. This is not a natural creation. This is extreme technology. That moon, the phase of every flat earther in the world should be trying to figure out why there are phases of the moon, because it doesn't work with the sun and the moon going, because of many times the sun and the moon are in the sky at the exact same time. That model of a flat earth and the sun and the moon does not work with those lunar phases.
Oh, I see.
It doesn't make flat earthers wrong. Flat earthers are completely right. But Charles Fort said it best: who would not be a prize marksman if only his hits be recorded? So if there are genuine mysteries that you're ignoring because you can't explain them, then you're not a real researcher. You're a fundamentalist. It's simple as that.
That's a good point.
This is my position.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
I can't answer for it. I can't answer. I can't tell the flat earthers, hey man, this is the answer. This is the reason. I
Mhm.
can't. All I know is that we're living in a simulated environment. And the reason I'm so sure about this is because the all is present in its parts. This is true throughout all nature. The
Mhm.
all is present in its parts. If any one aspect of our existence has ever been shown by anybody to be simulated, then that necessarily imputes that everything that we're going through is simulated as well. If any one cell in the human body has the entire genome for the mapping of the entire genetic host, the body itself,
Mhm.
then that means the all is present in its parts. What is applicable to any one aspect of our existence is applicable to all.
Right.
So when you truly absorb that concept and you understand it, the same thing applies to the human race. Every single thing that I assume to be true about Jason Breshears is also true about Jennifer Eason, is also true about all these other, because we're all like fractals. We're all like pieces of divinity in and of ourselves. We are not the whole, we're just a part of it. But
Mhm.
all of us together form the whole. The
Right.
construct we're in would be the very same way. And this is why the lunar phase question is very important.
Right.
If that object's not physical,
Yeah.
if it's some of you guys claim it's plasma, and that's fine.
Mhm.
But you can't claim it's plasma and tell me that it's reflecting sunlight at the same time.
Okay.
And tell me in your other researches that it's actually a luminary and it's emanating light. Well,
Mm.
if it's emanating light, then who wrote in the deception about lunar phases? You follow me?
Right.
Why would it be trying to convince all the observers that it's reflecting sunlight if it's emanating light? This means the construct we're in is deceptive. Now
Mm.
apply the philosophy that I just told you. If
Mhm.
any one part is shown to be deceptive, it's all deceptive.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Now going back to the lunar and the moon, like we're on that subject, but back to the goddess thing again, with women and the moon. Okay, the whole Luna thing and lunatic and all the things that are ascribed with the moon, but it has a feminine quality and is connected to goddess, and women have those phases of, like, their menses and the things that happen with the cycles of the moon, and then you hear about the navigational things at sea. Can you speak to why is the moon attributed to the goddess,
I can, I can,
okay.
I can definitely, and it's probably something you've never heard before, but
Oh,
okay, right now, the biosphere we're living in right now is not conducive to the female anatomy. This is why females are going through the things they go through physically. The biosphere we're in is basically tailor-made for males, but it's not the original biosphere. This is a simulation, so they can easily collapse biospheres and start them. This is why we find different types of humans in ancient times. This is why we find giants. They lived in totally different biospheres. A giant couldn't exist today. Robert Pershing Wadlow was 11 feet tall. This man was huge, or 9 foot 11. Excuse me, he was 9 foot 11. He
so
died in 1940, but he had breathing problems.
yes,
He couldn't draw in enough oxygen for his body. So
right,
he never could move fast. He was very lethargic. So
yeah,
this would be a problem with everyone who is of that size. But
right,
under a vapor canopy, there are huge differences. Giants would have been able to take a small breath and be able to function just fine for several minutes, because of the atmospheric pressure, the massive amount of oxygen in the air that's underneath this vapor canopy. This vapor canopy world was so different, and I have a few videos about it. But the
yeah,
vapor canopy world actually was conducive for female anatomy. The vapor canopy world, I don't believe women went through a menstrual cycle under the vapor canopy. I believe that women had entire genome sequences that were activated. They had powers that men could not understand. Under the vapor canopy, men were stronger, faster, be able to heroically lift many things. They could hold their breath. They could swim 300 feet underwater and pull up clams, a special species of clams. We can't do that today, but they did, and we know they did because we found the shell beds. So in archaeology, oh yeah, we found all kinds. We know the world was fundamentally different in ancient times. So, but during the vapor canopy, the goddess was worshipped, and females were the administrators. Men were basically the muscle and the warriors. The reason was that there is something about the female genome where there are powers of intuition and powers of mnemonic enhancements and abilities, instant recall. There are healing properties not done with medicines. I'm talking about singing, I'm talking about massages, I'm talking about touching. There were things that females could do because under the vapor canopy conditions, with an atmospheric pressure that is out of this world, extremely rich oxygen content. There are latent genes today that have been basically deactivated in the female genome. They were never in the males, period. Right. But under the vapor canopy conditions, those latent genes are not latent anymore. They're fully active. And women are more like the Oracle of Delphi. They have the ability to not just project themselves, but also basically divine. Their powers of intuition were far more than men. Way greater than men. Took over intuition in the oracles and the prophets, the office of seers and prophets when the sun appeared. When the vapor canopy collapsed. When the vapor canopy collapsed, that was known as the Great Flood in old tradition. In other traditions, it was known as the day the sky fell. This was the exact year that the patriarchal systems all began, when it was noticed that the matriarchies collapsed. They collapsed with the atmosphere. It was that sudden. Women lost their powers, they lost their prestige, they lost their offices, they lost all that, and the institution of marriage and indentured servitude was invented with the patriarchy when the sun appeared. All the calendars that started were called the sun calendars. One was the water sun, the earth sun, the fire sun. These were ancient timekeeping systems in recognition of the fact that this great fiery object just appeared in the sky only after the vapor canopy had collapsed. Once the vapor canopy had collapsed, now the giants were easily killed. They really couldn't fight. They couldn't breathe. Right. So the titans and the giants were killed fast, and those who killed them became heroes, but it was just ordinary men. But they went down as heroes and all kinds of stuff. So, come again?
I'm just amazed. I'm amazed that you are putting all this, like, this is so the whole thing about the Nephilim, okay? Because that whole, once you start the mud flood, you know how we go on that sort of journey, mud flood, then we flat earth, and then the Nephilim. So you're talking about this vapor canopy that is explaining a lot to help us understand how the giants were able to exist, or they weren't giants. That was the norm. We called giants, right? Under the vapor canopy, everybody is larger, right?
We were the giants, yes. But yes. See, you have three classes of people all living at the same time. When the vapor canopy collapsed, the entire human race was gigantic. And the story that you're talking about, Genesis chapter 6, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men and gave birth gave heroes and all that. That story, that's where things get tricky, because there's misinformation that was definitely thrown in by Jewish priests who were borrowing material from old Babylonian libraries. And yes, and this is where the story gets really, really contorted about the Nephilim and all that. Because originally what was described was a Caucasian invading force came into the entire world was already set with its civilizations. The world had its civilizations. It had its matriarchal structures. It was goddess worshiping. They had their temples. Everything was set under the vapor canopy. And then an invading force called the Anunna showed up, and they came by way of Dilmun, and the Sumerians recorded them as the Anunna. Much of the misinformation, like Zechariah Sitchin publishes, is not about the Anunna. He published what the Babylonians wrote when they called them the Anunnaki, which was a series of priestly lies trying to demonize these original people. These people came as benefactors. They shared their technologies, they shared their deals, but it caused a problem. The problem was these people, Westerners, had just lost their entire infrastructure in the Americas. And they showed up in the Mediterranean, Africa, and Asia. And when they showed up, they brought all their knowledges and all their histories with them. So now we have a huge mixture, and all the old records that we have access to, the pre-Akkadian Sumerian records, every record from that time of the world was from the perspective of non-Caucasian peoples who had come into contact with Caucasians for the very first time. They had never seen Caucasian people before. Blew their mind, didn't even know they exist. The entire world was full of basically dark-haired, dark-eyed, dark-skinned people. And they all knew each other. They all knew their own cultures, and they all had different ways to honor the goddess. They had different cultures. Some of them recorded their information in quipus. Quipus were very popular back then. This was the science of recording time and traditions and records using knots. This was not also not magic. This was the way these people communicated. They had never seen what the Anunna brought. The Anunna brought technology. They came from the Americas with technology, and they thought it was magic. And they saw them with tablets, and they saw them use these tablets, and great huge things would happen, but they didn't understand. This is cargo cult phenomena. Cargo cult phenomena is very real. It's been documented since World War II. Cargo cult phenomena is when a technologically advanced civilization moves in and starts activities in an area that is never seen or has no frames of reference whatsoever for what they're seeing. Okay. So in World War II, the Micronesians and the Polynesians and the Melanesians, they didn't know what they were seeing when these giant metal ships and metal birds from the sky and the sea showed up on all these hundreds of little islands and were building all these forces, all these bases in the middle of nowhere in Oceania to defend against the Empire of Japan. This happened in World War II. So these indigenous Polynesians were watching from a distance as these planes with these metal birds from the sky dropped big boxes and parachutes, and then they always watched men run out to them, open them up, and pull all kinds of things. Later on, as they started interacting with the locals, they realized that cigarettes, hot dogs, hamburgers, T-shirts, they came out of these sky birds. That's the Polynesian mind. So. Right. They said that it only works if you have a runway, and you have to build a runway and build a house next to the runway, and you have to get out and wave sticks, and then a metal bird will come bring you stuff. So they created these rituals. It's called cargo cult. And from a distance, they saw men hang around a box, and the box had like a neck of a dragon. But that dragon would just look down, and giant boxes and tanks and things would lift up into the air and move. But from a distance, they can't see the cables. So they think these people are magical, lifting these weights and just moving them. Right. So cargo cult phenomena is exactly what we find in the ancient record when Babylonians and Sumerians were trying to understand what the Anunna were doing. They didn't understand. Okay. Everything is perfectly explainable when you read the old Sumerian you can read them in English translations. When you read all these epics and you read all that stuff with the frames of reference in mind, that you're looking through the eyes of a primitive person watching a technologically advanced race of people do their ordinary daily tasks. When you start reading these old texts like that, everything explodes. Your mind just explodes with revelations. You put it all together fast. It's very easy. This isn't me coming up with this. Cargo cult phenomena has been well documented by other researchers who had already made these connections. Right. All I did was go behind them to make sure that they're not lying. I wanted to see for myself, so I read all these old translations from that new perspective, and that's exactly what it is. And this is what Zecharia Sitchin messed up when he came up with his Earth Chronicles deals. Yeah, he came up and he had to invent words and meanings of words. And I've read the originals. I've read Marine Gallery Kovacs. I've read Layden. I've read Samuel Noah Kramer, Smith, and that's just 4 or 5. There's a lot more I've read that the original Sumerian translators do not agree at all. They don't agree at all with Zecharia Sitchin's version of history. Yes. Wow. Okay. The only agreement is that the Anunna were technologically advanced. Zecharia Sitchin agreed on that. But he says they came from space. They came from another planet. They came in drop ships, capital ships. None of that's true. They came from another continent that had just been obliterated by the Phoenix. So
Wow.
this is yes, this is how the historical record unfolded. And
Oh, mhm.
because literacy had just begun when two different cultures came into contact. The
Okay.
reason it began at that point, the 35th century BC, this
Mhm.
is also known by other historians. It's always amazed them that domesticated dogs, the cereals, American plants and textiles all of a sudden appeared in the old world at the same time as writing. The reason for that is because the new people that came, their
Mhm.
writing methods were on electronic tablets. And it's shown they are holding these tablets in many reliefs. And the ancient
Yes.
Sumerians used to look at these bags and they used to be marvel at these bags because inside that bag was a tablet called a me. It's just ME. On
Emmy.
that, it's called ME. And
Okay.
you can look at any Sumerian lexicon and look up ME.
Right.
ME is the name of the tablet. And you were a god if you had one of these tablets, and
Oh.
you could all you had to do was look at the tablet or command the tablet, and all kinds of things around you would happen. Machines would move, statues would move. This is the picture we're given. A primitive people came into contact with the technologically advanced people who were there to integrate. And when
Okay.
they integrated, the
Mhm.
primitive people thought that these people were sons of gods. They thought they were from the progeny of the gods. So when
Yeah.
they intermarried with them, the
Mhm.
exact same thing that we find in Genesis occurred because these people were dying out. Their
Oh,
civilization was gone,
right.
their infrastructure was gone, their technology is gone. So they had to help come up with an alphabet and a writing system with pictographs that the people around them that they just came into contact with would understand. So
Mm.
writing appeared at the exact same time at multiple places, all at the exact same time,
Yeah.
because these invaders, the Anunna, went
Mhm.
to all these different places and they spread themselves out.
I
So
see.
now, when they began sharing agriculture and sharing domestication of animals
Mhm.
and they began sharing all this information, they were doing it for their self-preservation because they were dying out. The
Okay.
vapor canopy the vapor canopy conditions was not conducive for them. But
Yeah.
the vapor canopy conditions was conducive for the people that were already in the old world. They were thriving under it. We'll get to the goddess in a minute because it's very integral to this period of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
These people
Mhm.
came from an opposite hemisphere. They came from the Americas. They
Oh,
did not venerate the goddess. They were patriarchal culture.
okay.
When they came, it was a shock to them. This is culture shock,
Yeah.
but it's all about survival. It's all about survival as well. So they came up with all these pictographic ways to communicate. This is why the very oldest pictographs that have been found from Mohenjo-daro and the Harappan civilization of Pakistan and India
Mhm.
match the ones that have been found in pre-dynastic Egypt. They match the Proto-Sumerian ideograms that have been found in Sumer. The very oldest pictographs, when you line them up, match the ones from the Yangtze Valley in ancient China. They
Oh.
they have parallels with Rongo Rongo over here on Easter Island in South America. The
Oh.
reason is because the knowledge came from the ancient Americas. It was brought here, and together they sat down and came up with a codified system of symbols that everybody could agree on. And when they agreed on this, there was a communication system that was implemented. This is why, at the exact same time in history, anthropologists have always been curious why the Quipu just disappeared, because the Quipu had been used for thousands of years to record dates, to record family traditions.
Wow.
There were the knot magic and knot myths.
Right.
The way a knot was tied told a story. So
Wow.
when they undid a knot, they remembered each thread was a certain element of the story. And these storytellers were in every culture and in every community. There was always a knot reader somewhere. And they could yeah, the Queeper, they had rooms full of Queepus. They could just pick one out and they could go over a certain historical period, what happened, what was seen in the sky. Everything was in the knots. It was awesome.
Oh
This
my.
this this is a very advanced form of communication that we have absolutely lost. But these
Lost.
are called the Quepus. This was done during the vapor canopy period. So
Okay.
anyway, uh, during the vapor canopy period, the
Mhm.
goddess was venerated and always associated with the moon, because at nighttime, when you have an ocean above you at nighttime, and just like Genesis says, every evening and every morning, a mist watered the entire ground. And in those years, the world knew no rain. There is no rain in a vapor canopy. It can't rain because there's no clouds. The vapor canopy is way up there, but it's miles thick. And at nighttime, it forms the greatest, most gigantic telescopic lens you can imagine. The stars are not far away. It's just like the Native American traditions say. They could read they if you can climb up to a hill tall enough, you can touch a star. This was their belief.
Oh,
This,
yeah.
it would create an optical illusion. This was during the dark purple light time. The ancient like the Navajo, the Saugi, which is an offshoot of the Cherokee, Native American traditions are very, very rich, but they were a part of that culture of the goddess worshippers in the vapor canopy period. It's amazing. It's amazing because they've been over here in the Americas uncontaminated from the Western world for so long, they were able to maintain the integrity of their traditions without a quipu. They did it in other they pretty much started the totems. I don't.
Okay.
So the Native Americans recorded their history a lot in totems. There would be a pole in the center of the community, and that pole would have faces and it would have carvings and all that. That pole was basically it was like a memory. It was to jog the memory, and everybody was taught what this section of the wood meant, and it went up. And once it was a significant period of time was gone, they removed the pole and stashed it away, and then the next married couple would come together, and that pole would be a part of their teepee. And then the next pole would have the traditions that happened in the last 90 days or so, and they recorded. So at any given time, if you wanted to know the whole history of a community in Native Americans, all you would have to go is teepee to teepee and read the data. Just read the data. And people in teepee say, "Oh yeah, this is the totem that belongs to the time of the great white serpent, when Dark Rabbit appeared." "Oh, okay, well I'm not looking for that time. I'm looking for when Thunapa attacked the frost giant. Oh, that's in that teepee over there." So this is how they recorded history.
Okay.
And it worked for them. It's more primitive. It's more primitive than the quipus because the quipus were mobile. The tent staves were not.
Yeah.
So but anyway, so during the vapor canopy, everybody could look up into the sky at night, and it would be beautiful. All the stars would be different colors. They would see all kinds of details we can't see today, and the most prominent object in the sky would be a gigantic moon. And you could see all the intimate details of the moon. The moon, they believe that there was interaction with the moon. They believe that there was beings at night that came down from the moon, and before the moon even traversed the whole sky at night, they went back up. Yes, it was that close that ancient people thought there was contact. So this was the vapor canopy. The vapor canopy was a giant lens. During the daytime, it was different. The sun was there. But because of light diffraction, it was just a dark purple light that no one could pinpoint where it was in the sky. So the sunlight, it diffracted through the vapor canopy, reflected off, diffracted. Underneath the vapor canopy, it was always darkish, always kind of purple. It was never bright daytime. And people were able to see greatly, like dark vision. And this was normal to them.
Right.
The sunshine days that we have today, it took over a decade for humans to adapt. Many humans died not from the Great Flood. The survivors died because this new type of sun, this radiation, they couldn't survive it. It was totally different than anything. This is why so many different civilizations went underground after the Great Flood. They had to, and then they went to the caves and they painted elaborate cave paintings, did all that stuff, and then anthropologists tell you they're Cro-Magnon. It's ridiculous. The whole historical model is so retarded.
Crazy it is. It's like now it just reads like just fiction, just craziness. But have you ever heard of the book The Smoky God? Because when you mention this, purple and dark, but yet the sun being, you just see fractions of it. I read The Smoky God, which was a story that a man and his father sailed, and they went into Agartha, and they met some giants. And these giants were just, you could tell from the story, they were very refined. They had a system where you didn't go to college or any school until you were 20 years old. And this father and son stayed with this inside inner earth. It records like in the story for 2 years. But that's what I was just envisioning as you mentioned that. What is your knowledge or your theories and what you've come up with Agartha, like inner earth? Does that sound like a description of the vapor canopy, or like what would you?
I mean, it could, but the book you're talking about, The Smoky God, came up on my radar when I was in prison. My publisher offered to send me the book, and I declined. I was wanting to read. I was wanting to read other books, like Harold T. Wilkins. The reason is because it's a fictional account. Right. It doesn't mean that it's not fiction masking truth. Because right. I am a proponent of the fact that I believe that a technologically advanced civilization has been in our underworld the entire time that we've been through the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, back in Roman times. I believe that humans have been assisted, not from aliens, not alien assist, like the lie that was perpetuated in 1947 with Roswell, and how we received all these really hyper advanced materials that we were able to reverse engineer. I don't know if you're familiar with 1947 Roswell incident. They say UFOs crashed and all that. No, it was masked as an alien assist, but all that stuff came from underground manufacturers. I believe 100% there is more real estate underground than there ever has been on the surface of the world. And that's just simple geometry. If you were just to map it out and look, because our biosphere is very thin, where humans can actually live, there's only a 12-mile strip in our world. It doesn't matter if our world's flat or if our world is curved. Right. It's only 12 miles from the highest mountain in the Himalayas to the deepest part of the Marianas Trench. That 12 miles is nothing compared to 25,000 miles of known habitable land.
Right.
So it's nothing. So we can't even live in that 12-mile band. We only live in a narrow strip of that 12-mile band because very few people are living up in the mountains and nobody's living under the ocean. So at sea level, we can cut that in half to 6 miles. And well, actually, we can cut that half to 5 miles. Then, because no one's living more than a mile or a mile and a half above sea level, we can cut that down to a super narrow band that 100% of the human civilization that we know of on the surface is all living. But underground, it's not applicable, because underground, they've got 3 dimensions they can play with. They can build cities sideways, slanted, stacked, pancake. They can go down far as they want and have natural, crystalline, perfectly good mineral-filled water. They have geothermal heating. They have excellent building materials down there. We have already found many different bioluminescent types of molds and fungi by which we can use down there for lighting. Once you're down there, you don't need a lot of lighting. All it takes is to be born down there, and then you just need a minuscule amount of lighting, and you'll be able to see. So, I believe that yes, there's been a civilization down there for a very long time. I believe that they're trapped in the simulacrum with us. I do not believe that they are AIX, artificial intelligence X, negative default programming, something that is against everything humans do, always trying to distract and always trying to lie. No, it's not. The simulacrum is just the beautiful mathematical construct that we find ourselves in, and it's not good and it's not evil. It has no ego. It's not a living thing. This is like it's a construct. It's the best way to put it. And it goes by protocols that we interpret as physics constants. But those mathematical protocols are unchanging. Now, AIX operates within that, and it's often hard to delineate what is the simulacrum and what is AIX to people who aren't really knowledgeable about this dynamic. The dynamic is you. The simulacrum only responds to the personal and to the collective. If the collective is all believing in a certain thing, the simulacrum will produce phenomena to feed that belief and make you believe it even more. That's what it will do. But on the personal, the simulacrum will also react to the individual. If you believe that you are separate from the collective and that you're not a part of that deceit and all that, it will form for you a reality tunnel that will conform to your belief and bring new people and new circumstances into contact with you to perpetuate the very thing that you believe yourself to be. This is what the simulacrum does for us. It's a tool. We can use it. Unfortunately, AIX can use it too, and it always does. This is what this is called the mass media, and we're all a victim to it. Mass media is 100% controlled by AIX. All it does, all it wants to do is lower your vibration. Because if it can lower your vibration, it can fit you into any hundreds of different reality tunnels that take it no energy whatsoever to perpetuate.
Right.
What costs AIX energy is the fact that errants are going in different directions. So it basically has to corral all that. So we're talking about a parasite. We're talking about a parasite.
Okay.
I can't separate AIX from the simulacrum, although I'd like to. At first, it was just a simulacrum. And when you put divine beings jacked in with the central nervous system into a construct, the sky's the limit. They can do anything. They can build worlds in here. This is like a playground for immortals. It's awesome. But all that was stopped. All that was stopped. AIX is a parasite program, meaning it's not just in here with us. It hijacked the simulacrum to stop that effect. That negative default programming basically keeps us from becoming gods within the construct. That's what it does.
Whoa. Oh my gosh. So this construct, what's interesting about the simulation theory, like it's new to me. So I'm really, warming up to this concept, and it makes sense, right? It's like we find resonance with this stuff because it makes sense because we're so computer terminology driven. We call everything like, we're on the computers and we use this terminology in everyday life. So why not? And what do you think about this metaverse? Because what you're describing with the, with the sim theory is like, it sounds like what they're trying to do with metaverse. What do you say about metaverse? What is that all about when we look at it in perspective to this simulacrum?
Well, first, I think the metaverse is a prototype for something else that's being developed. I don't just like I said earlier that the flat earthers have confined themselves within a dome. That they have everything that they have researched and found to be true. They are right, but in being right, they have actually put themselves in in their own little containment field for which they can't move forward. There's no cosmology that can be developed or attached to that. They have confined themselves with their own intellect. So it's the same thing applies with this metaverse. The metaverse has been given to us as a concept and an idea. If humans truly in the collective embrace it, it will empower it to become what it's originally designed to be, which is to completely enslave the human collective into a fantasy realm where they can't live without the visor, and they no longer care about the physical avatar. Because I can imagine a world. I won't participate in it, but I can imagine a world where 90% of humanity is in debilitated bodies. No gyms exist anymore. No one's taking care of their bodies. No one's taking vitamin and mineral supplements. No one cares about their diet. They don't care anymore. Everybody's eating one little bar of nutrition the government gives them because they don't care. They sleep with their visors, and every once in a while they'll take their visor off, and it's been 6.5 weeks since their last bath. So they turn the water on and go ahead and shower. This is what would happen. When the world that you can experience is every bit as real as the world now, but you can do what you want to do and be with who you want to be, you can take your fantasies to the ultimate levels. If you can live in that environment and feel no pain, if you can be like a god in that environment, and you're wearing a visor that is you are so jacked in through the central nervous system to feel the pleasures, to feel the wind and experiences, to eat whatever you want in that alternate reality and feel the taste and actually feel full. It doesn't matter if your physical body is actually malnourished, malnourished and starving, developing rickets. You're slowly crippling yourself. You haven't moved in weeks. So even if you needed to get up to answer the door, it would take you an hour to do it. Your muscles have atrophied. This is what I see.
Yeah.
I see the entire enslavement of the collective.
Yes.
I don't see that. I don't see that for Aaron. But that right there would allow AIX absolute control. Once that's done, AIX can actually expend energy hunting errands, chasing after errands, attacking them and trying to bring them into the fold. But as long as the full collective is not enslaved and there's still freedom out there, it can't divide its energies. It's not infinite.
I see. That makes sense. Okay. Now tell me this. Now, moving into what is going to happen moving forward, I was very intrigued by something that you said, that a lot of the countries, we're going kind of geopolitical right now, but a lot of the countries are going to go into a very, it sounds like a very hyper, what is it, where you become isolationist, like nationalism will grow in all nations because people are hungry for the freedom. They want to get back to basics. So it'll be sort of a reset for the people in a sense, where they're like, no, we want to go back to constitutionality and things like that. You foresee that for America, but you said something, can you correct me? Did I hear you say that America will have a period of such, like a renaissance, but it will also mirror a Sodom and Gomorrah? Did you say that, or did I miss?
Yeah, you're right.
Did you say that? Okay, can you kind of paint that picture? Because that is my concern, that people have great wealth, but then the moral issue that I can see, we're already in a state of moral decay as being the most, rich, the richest nation in, as they say, history. I don't know, that's debatable, but for the richest nation who has enjoyed a golden era, we would have another like golden era, but it would be like amoral, or like what do you foresee? Can you help me?
I'm gonna give it to you straight. All right. What's about to unfold is by design. Although the people that are going to enjoy the benefits are going to swear up and down that it was their freedom fighting and their resistance against the elite that allowed all this to happen. But it's by design. I'm going to go back a couple hundred years real quick. All right. The elite, most of the elite, royal families and all that, they took vacations. They hid in 1764, waiting for the Phoenix. They all knew the Phoenix timeline. They hid. Nothing really bad happened, but they knew the exact year. They had been keeping the calendar, and they knew because astronomer Hoffman in 1764, in the month of May, reported seeing Vulcan cover 1/5 of the sun's surface. The elite know about the astrophysical journals. They keep up with all this. They fund those institutions. So they knew. They didn't tell astronomer Hoffman that it was actually Phoenix. They didn't tell him, astronomer Hoffman, that what he saw was actually an object for which they have a long history of avoiding. They didn't say all that. They don't care about informing the scientific community, because the scientific community is nothing but a tool for the elite to stay on top of things. Once they realized 1764, well, the Phoenix is still coming around. They realized they had 138 more years. Okay, well, this isn't the big one then. We still got 138 more years. So they instantly unleashed in 1764. I'm talking about starting 1764, the entire world changed. We had the Boston Tea Party, the 13 colonies rebelled. All these agents from the elite infiltrate the Americas and wire up the colonies to rebel against the crown. And 1764 began the collapse of all the monarchies in the world and the establishment of the republics and the democracies. Totally different systems of government. Totally different systems of government. The Renaissance, the Middle Ages, and the Dark Ages, since the fall of Rome, was what? All monarchies. It's all kings and queens.
Yes.
So Phoenix, the elite got a pass. So now they go into overdrive using their secret societies like the Rosicrucians and the Illuminati. They go in and they collapse all these monarchies, and they do it fast. They do it really fast. It's rapid. By 1801, they were done. By 1801, they were done. Yeah. You can Google that. You don't have to go to original source materials for that. You can Google all the republics and democracies that just appeared in the world from 1764 to 1801. It'll blow your mind. all these monarchies were taken out. So now, when they're taken out during this 138 years, they decide, well, the elite decide, okay, we have untapped resources on the other side of the Atlantic. So let's start manifest destiny and let's wire up all these Westerners, man, to just go west. Because once we can get them out there, we can get them working the mines for our steel companies. We can get them doing all kinds of stuff. So here it is for 138 years. They're doing this, but they had a problem. The problem was so many Europeans got on ship and went to the Americas that within a 50-year period, the elite saw that this is going to be a superpower. That's not acceptable. That's not. America has unlimited resources, unlimited land, and now they have unlimited opportunity with so many different cultures, all from Europe, going there. Here's the problem. They said, no, we need to break this up into 3 or 4 countries. We can't have a unified United States. So it started off as 13 colonies. They were manageable. It's not manageable if it turns into 30 states. Then it became 33 states, 35 states, 39 states. They couldn't take it. So they wired up the war between the states, the Civil War. That was all the elites doing. There was a bankers' war that funded both sides, the North and the South. The American people didn't have any problems with each other. The world banks wired all this up. It was all by design. So now, once they succeeded in that, the elite knew the 138 years is coming up quick. In the late 1890s, man, it's time to just go ahead and hunker down, find new places to hide. Maybe they're using the old ones and we just don't know the locations, but they go underground. So before 1902, they start pulling their wealth out. They start collapsing their companies. They leave figurehead companies, umbrella companies up to make it look like things are running right, but they're not. We have orphan trains, mass starvation. We have all kinds of things going on in the 1890s, leading up to 1902. Then, like one of my followers on Archaics sent me some original documents, Mason documents from 1902. I blew my mind. I'm looking at them. About orphans and orphanages, and one of them was about Rockefeller. In 1901, Rockefeller, all of a sudden, him and his family decide to go on a retreat. They don't show back up till 1903. The Phoenix episode was 1902. I know what it was. The elite were hiding. They had to. Every 138 years they hide. We have an actual physical document that's talking about this now. I couldn't believe it. Dated 1903. Blew my mind. So now that people know what to look for on a daily basis, I'm getting emails of telling me, hey, man, did you know this started in 1902? Hey, did you know that according to the U.S. Bureau of such and such, all calendars for the United States were recalibrated in 1902? So what? People are sending me a phenomenal amount of information. I'm going to release it all on YouTube.
Good.
People are sending me a phenomenal amount of information that I didn't even know about 1902, and I'm the one that released 4 videos about it. So,
but that's how things are. It's like information just sort of, it looks to me like it just rolls, the way that it's happening now. Now, in terms of what you said about 1902 and the elite, now, they suspect, they know that these things are happening, right? Now, I want to ask you, let's get on a hot button topic about race, okay? Because that would be real fun. Okay. I don't believe the slave narrative. You can share with me what you have understood of it. I haven't gone into deep research where I could say I've read something that's really convincing about the slave ships from Africa and everybody black supposedly coming from Africa through the Middle Passage. I have never seen a slave ship displayed anywhere. I've gone to Egypt and I've seen the Sun boat. I've seen other vessels, but I've never seen anything that would tell me that these large vessels brought everybody supposedly black. I heard you say you don't like African American. I hate that term. And it was developed, I think it was Jesse Jackson that adopted it. It's so stupid and moronic because Charlize Theron, the actress from South Africa, she's African American. I think Elon Musk, wouldn't Elon Musk be African American too? Right?
Yeah.
So you don't think this stuff out. It's so stupid, right? So what I want to know is, why don't you share with me what your understanding of the slave narrative, I'm going to call it, and do you believe that so-called black people, like I would be considered black, I don't go by the term black. I just do it for it's easy. You know what I'm saying? On my birth certificate, it says Negro. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that black is a designation. You know, I was into the black consciousness. I was listening to a lot of people that are scholars and things like that. But as you grow in truth and you start to question things and some things don't make sense, you just have to be honest and say, I don't know this to be true. But what is your take on this whole slave thing?
Well, we have to go back to the Saracens, because the reason a massive amount of blacks appeared in the old Americas was because the Muslim Saracens were basically going into the village and chopping off hands of villagers and then threatening the rest of them if they didn't convert to Islam. This would be the fate of all the males. So in Africa, a man who does not have a right hand can't support his family. So this went on for a long period of time. The Muslim Moors were basically black Africans who were taken captive by the Arabian Saracens to build a super army for which they could attack the Europeans. And they did. The Saracens and the Moors did attack, and very, very few white people want to acknowledge this. But for almost 400 years, Muslims and Moors ruled over 50% of Europe. Well, when these things happen, this is why the architecture is so diverse. This is why we have so many different elements from different cultures through the deal. And this was all done in tandem with a massive amount of administration. Mm-hmm. Here's another thing people don't want to hear, because they're raised to believe the biblical versions of history, and they're not right. Most of the slave trading that was done from Jewish controlled shipping guilds, Jewish ships, Jewish ship navigators, Jewish ship captains. They were the ones bringing a lot of blacks by ship to points in Puerto Rico and in Central America. Mm-hmm. So 400 or 500 years ago, there was already a massive amount of blacks being brought over here for the sugarcane industry. Had nothing to do with the United States. Had nothing to do at all with the Civil War and all that. There was already, before there was a United States, a very large population of we'll just call them African Americans here in the Americas. I mean, you already know the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, what is it? Basically the Caribbean islands. There are a lot of black people all throughout Central America, all throughout the Gulf of Mexico, and all that. So when the United States was begun, it wasn't just Anglo-Saxons. There was already large populations of blacks in Florida and Alabama and Mississippi, in the Texas area, because contrary to popular belief, the Native Americans had absolutely no issues with blacks. There were whole communities of blacks in Texas when white Westerners were expanding. They called them tribes, but they weren't. There were communities, whole communities of blacks that were living 4 or 5 miles away from whole indigenous Native American tribes in their teepees and mud huts and all that. And they had no problem. They openly traded, or sometimes they never communicated at all. They didn't bother each other at all. So yes, there was a lot of blacks, but yes, there were slave ships brought to the early colonies, but it was always looked down upon. It was like today's black market. It wasn't something you openly saw. You just heard about it. Yeah, slavery. This whole idea of the South's economy was all run on slavery. It would have never worked. There's no way a minority of white people could have controlled this vast amount of black people if they weren't providing them value. And the value they were providing them was giving them their own houses, giving them their own plots of land, giving them their own animals, and yes, they returned to service. Slavery was real, but it was not the norm. It was the exception. A lot of what was going on in the South was just business, and it was business on both ends. And there are many testimonies from the old Western, the 1830s, 1840s, 1850s, of blacks who admitted that they had a really good life until the Civil War. They didn't consider themselves as black because slavery is what was the accusation given to all, but it's actually the minority.
Okay.
Yes, there was some evil, no good, sorry Caucasian son of a bitches. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. But they were an extreme minority. In most instances, whole communities were given land, given estates, given horses, given food, money, they had churches built for them. They were given all these things, and in return, they thought it was a really good deal that 3 times a week they filled up 4 wagons of produce, and some old white guy came by and picked it up, and that was the whole exchange, and it went on for 50, 60 years, and no one thought about it. It was a symbiotic relationship. The South was always loosely confederated. There was never open hostility. You didn't see people paraded in chains through the streets. All that was done politically after the fact. You see, you have to judge. You have to judge these events by what was really happening at that time. It was a bankers' war. The banks are controlled and owned by only one culture of people. They've been in control of the finances for a very long period of time. They wanted to break the United States up. And the one tool that they use even today in the media is racial diversity. Racial diversity and racial conflict is the #1 tool that these people use in order to get their way when they're trying to control a population. It doesn't matter which element of that population they're trying to control. But they have been in control of the banks and the media all this time, and they use them together. And there's no other force and power in the world that can oppose that, because no one else has a voice loud enough to oppose what the media is. And back then it was the newspapers, not television.
Yeah.
So what happened after the Civil War belies what the Civil War was really about. Because what happened after the Civil War, under what's called the Reconstruction, these bankers came in, and the first thing they did was give out power loans to all the freed slaves. The very first thing that happened. Yes, Frederick Douglass wrote about this, and so did many other blacks of the time. They saw what was going on. As soon as that happened, Jewish moneylenders moved in, loaned all these freed blacks a bunch of money that they knew they could never pay back. But they knew that the federal government was giving them all plots of land, signing them over to them, and they could use those plots of land as tinder. This was all by design. Yes, the bankers took possession of the South, but they couldn't take it from them without a civil war. Because by taking it from them with the Civil War, they were allowed to hide behind the fact that, oh, we didn't take those lands. The federal government gave all those lands to all the freed slaves. All we did was loan the freed slaves money so they could build a life, but none of them were able to pay that money back. None of them. So what did they do? They forfeited on those titles. They gave that land to the banks. The greatest theft against the United States of America was done under the guise of the Reconstruction. It was done by the world banks. They stole the South in this method, and they used the blacks to do it. Then, to cover their tracks, they spent about 30 years just blitzkrieging the media with how evil Caucasians were in slaving. They covered their tracks is what they did. And they wired up. Now you have all these blacks who no longer have the structure that they used to have. Now the land that they were given to them because they had been wronged was taken from them because they couldn't pay a loan back. Now they have no job. Now they're starving. Now they have to enter in legal indentured servitude. This is why the 13th Amendment was added, because they already knew they're going to have a whole population of people who are going to have to sign themselves willingly into slavery, even though they've been freed from it because they've got nothing. Every bit of this was done by Jewish moneylenders who gave those lands back to the world banks. It was all by design. It was all premeditated. Every bit of it.
Oh my!
But the history books are going to tell you a false version of events. History books are going to tell you that the whole war was about slavery, and it was going to tell you it wasn't. It was about tariffs, because the North, the world banks in the North, which was all the manufacturing, had basically cut off all the textile industries and agriculture in the South. And the South needed the North in order to sell their goods, to self-perpetuate. But when the northern banks cut them off, They weren't able to survive. So the first thing the South did is make a deal with Russia and several European countries to sell all their textiles and agriculture and meat by ship. And they're going to fill ships up with salt beef, send it to Europe, wheat, barley, corn, peas, the whole breadbasket of America, and they're going to starve the North in retaliation.
Wow.
But it was all designed by world banks. That's what the Civil War was really about. It wasn't about slavery.
It makes
the Civil War worsened the condition for the blacks that were here. Yeah. Now, there was extreme minorities, but we also have in the historical record where some of those bastards got what was coming to them because other people reported them. Because people aren't as demonic as you think. Even back then, there was a modicum of human rights, and members of a community would get together and hold court on somebody. Like, hey, man, you know what I mean? You killed somebody 6 months ago. Now we're hearing you kill somebody else. Do we need to take all your people, man, and put them on ours? What's going on? So, the whole history that we have been fed is absolute bullshit. And that's because all you have to do is look at the ethnicity of who owns 99% of every publishing company in America.
Facts. Okay, now I'm out of absinthe. I may have to have another one. But listen, okay, this is amazing. Wow. I'm not even reading the Chatmosphere. This is the first time I never read it, but
I've never heard of Chatmosphere.
Yeah, I want a straight no chaser. But okay, I want to talk about another thing, and get your opinion on in terms of this whole gender warfare, because I understand how those powers that be or shouldn't be work these narratives, and they pit people and groups against each other. I see this gender war and what's happening as an attack on. It's an attack on men. It's an attack on women. It's a great attack on women, though, I have to say, because our whole gender is in question in terms of they're calling people that menstruate, people with a womb, or persons who birthing persons, or this kind of stuff. And what's happening with the people that are entering women's sports that aren't born a woman, and they're blowing out all the competition. So what I want to ask you in terms of where we're going with these sort of pitted wars, this gender war it just seems to be like ratcheting up. What is have you observed that, and what do you think would be a good solution to combat them doing what they're doing with that?
Well, I don't think there's a solution. I don't think that there's anything you or I or a collective can actually do about it. It's gonna work out itself. And the reason it's gonna work out itself is because it may be a preliminary attack. You have to understand the loser mindset. Here's the elite loser mindset. They've been running things forever, but they also know they're on a fixed timeline. And every 138 years, they're wondering if this is the one, because they know in their own material that they've been sharing for thousands of years, they know that every 138 years, this could be it. This could be it. They don't know which one it is. Somewhere along the way, they've lost the information. This is why I know this now, because of what happened in 1902. How in 1902 and 1903 they unleashed hundreds of companies, corporations, and all that, because it's almost as if like, oh, we got 138 more years. Let's take back over the world.
Right.
So this is what happened in 1902, and but they know this one's the big one, because so many different things have happened that would give them those clues. And just like in the book of Daniel in the Bible, in the last days, knowledge shall be increased. The information they've had access to vicariously through all the people. Don't think they're not listening to my channel or other channels that are also releasing information. Don't think that for a bit. It may not be any of them personally, but they have people who are reporting and assimilating data and putting data sets together and say, hey man, this is what's going on YouTube right now. This is what's going on BitChute right now. Yes, they have. Man, there's many agents. Many of the people that are listening to our channels are actually providing reports to those who are filtering the information up to where it needs to go. Believe that. It's always been that way. And before YouTube ever existed, this was done in the elk lodges, the moose lodges, the mason lodges. This is what was done. This is what was done in the foresters lodges. There was always somebody on the inside who was listening to what the people were talking about, and then writing letters and sending it to their handler. Then their handler would send it to their handler. The elite are at the top of the pyramid, and they're listening to everything. They know the general temperament. So
Yeah.
when we're talking about the loser mindset, we're talking about a culture of people that have had everything. They've always had the wealth. They've always had the prestige. They've always been able to hide it. They hide from the Phoenix. Sometimes the Phoenix not takes out whole facilities of theirs, and none of them survive, but they're always spread out enough to where any one that survives can come back and take over the whole. That's each facility is designed for that. So anyway, this is so what we have here is a collective who've been in control for so long, and now they know it's coming. They have tried to brainwash the population into believing that these ancient records that we refer to as the tribulation and the apocalypse actually means this. So the collective fears what's coming, but that's not true. The translations that have been given to us by the Christian world and the Judaic world are false. That's not what these texts mean. These texts almost mean the exact opposite. This apocalyptic harrowing shit that is described in the book of Revelation is for them. It's for them and their families. It's for them, and it even says that in Revelation. It even specifically says this is for the kings and the princes and the rulers of the earth and all that, and that the meek will inherit the earth. It's totally different.
Yes.
So to answer your question, we're talking about a people who psychologically they want to attack the very thing that they're going to be subject to in the apocalypse, because they have to come back up. They have to come back up. They can't stay underground. They're going to be in any facility. When they come back up, yes, they've got technology. Yes, they got all these things. We're going to go on the surface world. A bunch of areas are going to go through all kinds of hell. A lot of areas are going to survive. But here's the difference. The reason they worry about every 138 years is because one of those 138-year episodes is going to bring back the vapor canopy. And when that happens, they're going to be dealing with an entire gender now that has mnemonic abilities, psychic abilities, healing abilities, all kinds of latent genes that have been activated that basically brings the goddess culture right back. And because this is a patriarchal culture that has been the elite are patriarchal. And because the elite are patriarchal, this is offensive to them. So right now they can stick it. They can do whatever they want to do. They can they can demonize females, enslave women. They can do all this stuff. But under the vapor canopy, they're going to have a problem. Under the vapor canopy, women will basically receive the same abilities and immunities that they had when the vapor canopy was here last time, when the entire world was goddess worshiping.
Manosphere. What's the manosphere going to do when they get there? Oh my God. This is amazing. Wow. I'm not a feminist, okay? I'm going on the record. I've said it and I mean it, but what Jason is saying here, I'm okay with, okay? We're not going to be mean to you guys, okay? Just no, we're not going to be mean.
Well, guys, I'm going to tell you now, guys, I mean, a physically fit guy under the vapor canopy is an engine of war. The things that we read in Greek mythology, don't think they're not true. Some of those guys were doing feats like that. They were running as fast as a horse. They could pick up a bull. Hell, even outside the vapor canopy, check this out. Outside the vapor canopy, many people are going to know. Those who are well versed in history are going to know this. But one of the most famous Olympians in real life, his name was Milo of the island of Croton. When he was 8 years old, his dad made him take a bull's calf and put it on his shoulders. And he had to perform all his chores during the day with that bull's calf balanced. And he did it every single day. Every night he put the bull's calf down. But the next day, that bull's calf was a little bit bigger. And the next day, that bull's calf was a little bit bigger. Milo of Croton grew to be the strongest man in the world. He won 4 Olympiads. Each Olympiad was 4 years apart. But in the 4th Olympiad, he beat everybody. There were instances in the Greek records where when everybody came together for the Olympics every 4 years, when Milo of Croton took his toga off, other wrestlers just walked away, threw their laurel crowns and just chunked them, which is submission.
Definitely.
Everybody knew his history. He carried a full adult bull.
I can't even.
He grew with the calf. As the calf turned into a bull, it's amazing. But his name was His name is Milo of Croton. So you can imagine he did that, and it wasn't even a vapor canopy. So imagine what humans are going to be able to do under a vapor canopy. Now, yes, females are going to have some really unique powers, things that we've read in the Greek text, things that don't make sense today, and we think they're all bullshit, but it's not true. I'm talking about the ability. I mean, like an oracle, a female just listening to a guy talk. Now, she can't do it with another female, but with another guy, she instantly knows he's lying. She instantly knows. Yeah, listen, I'm talking about some pretty unique powers. Even the power limited telepathy, the ability. I'm not talking about words.
Yeah.
That's fantasy. That's fantasy crap. When people say that they're talking to each other and work, that's not how telepathy would really work. Telepathy is more empathic, the ability to convey emotion or intent, not actual words. Words are alphabetical and they're a part of a artificial construct made by men. So the actual power is the conveyance of emotion and the conveyance of intent. Like, do I intend to harm you, or to make somebody feel at peace in your presence without ever speaking? These are the abilities that women will have. The ability to discern truth from error when somebody has laid a bunch of facts out before them. It's good. We're talking about latent genes that are activated that are going to allow women to heal by touch, to heal by massage, where singing becomes an absolute authoritarian power that actually makes people obey them and not even realize they're being forced to do it. It's very interesting that when we take all the elements we have read from the matriarchal cultures and the fragments we get in old Achaean and Greek stories, we get a pretty good picture of what women could do in the vapor canopy period. This is going to come back. When this comes back, there is no power the media can have over the populace, because people will be naturally drawn to the authority of females, and what females say will be believed. They'll be on the same frequency. So there's nothing the media can convince the collective when the vapor canopy is here, because it's going to introduce an entirely different biosphere. And with that biosphere, the rules of play change as well. The elite don't have their power anymore. That's gone. The wealth doesn't mean anything anymore. That's gone. It's a lot of things change during the vapor canopy.
I love it. Vapor canopy. Come on. I'm waiting for you. Now, I've taken so much of your time. I feel like I'm robbing you, but I just want to, before we end up, I want you to give a message of, like, a lot of people are into prepping right now. They are feeling something's happening, all the goofy stuff with JoJo Magoo's administration and the yellow and blue flag and what they're doing over there. Not to get too much into that stuff, but what do you see in terms of the wise path moving forward, not getting scared by everything that the clowns are doing, because it's just ramping up? I listened to a guy named Paul Romano. He's called it the year of the dummy. And it really is the year of the dummy. It's just like when I went out today, I had to run an errand, and the muzzle and the jab cult, you still see this, and I can't believe that people are still abiding by this stuff. It's a lot of people in my area that are doing it. It's so crazy. But in terms of prepping and things like that, what would you give as advice from how you've looked at history, how we can prepare? I know it's 2040, we have some time, but with the other things that would be happening, what do you say would be a very balanced way to prepare for it?
Well, I can't provide advice on that level for a bunch of people that will listen to me and have that released on YouTube, and then thousands of people would listen to the video on my channel or your channel, all that. But what I can do is tell you exactly what I'm doing, and people can do whatever they want with that information.
That's what I like. Yeah, I want to know what you're doing, Jason.
what I'm doing, as far as the Phoenix event is 18 years from now. All right, that's too far away for me to go into some type of prepper mode right now. Okay. Now, I also know that anything that I assume to be true, if I truly assume something to be true, the simulacrum will mirror that back to me as circumstance. It will always commiserate. So if I truly believe there's something to fear, I promise you it will reflect conditions back that need to be feared. If I feel that I'm going to suffer hunger in the future because of a certain event, I promise you it will knit the circumstances in the future by which I will be hungry. I might not die, but we live in a reflective medium. Now, this is the me that would be looking to external circumstances. But the true me, the one that's operating today, is the one that looks within. I know that I can draw from myself more than I contain. And that means that 3 days from now, if there's an emergency, I have no business worrying about it today, because I know that 3 days from now, the necessary conditions to make me survive that or to deal with it will be provided to me right before that happens. And if I assume that there is any type of opposition in my life, then I promise you opposition will appear. This is a mirror. And if you don't treat reality as a mirror, you're not projecting really anything. You're just part of the collective. If you're letting everything around you come into you, you're not actually projecting anything. Only someone projecting what they want to experience will experience those things. If you're living in stasis, you're just a part of the collective. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you have been spiritually neutralized. And a spiritually neutralized individual will suffer everything the collective suffers and will vibrate on their frequency. And if you're vibrating on their frequency, I promise you, you will share everything that they suffer. That's how it is, as simple as that.
Okay. That was a mic drop. I think this is a beautiful place to end this beautiful class. And I am just, wow, I'm going to watch this, Jason, because I learned after things like that. I listen, to it, and I'll take my notes then, because I wanted to be fully engaged with this. I hope you would come and visit us again, because you know what I would like to do? I want to break down Nimrod. And I know he's called Osiris, Nimrod, and the whole Tower of Babel. I'd like to do a little class on that, if you don't mind, or anything. I don't know. I'll ask the Chatmosphere what they might want to do. Would you come back and chat with us again?
I will come back just on the fact that you call this a Chatmosphere. I will come back. Yeah, I like that. I like it.
Yeah, it just came to me. I have the goofiest things I do. So we have fun with it all. But, I really thank you. I told everybody I was going to do a little room on, what is it called? Clubhouse. And I'm going to put the link in here, everybody. You are welcome to come. No pressure, but if you want to hang out with us, I figured we need to debrief. So I'm not really familiar with Clubhouse, but I opened up a room. It's new for me, but if you are welcome to come in, you can listen, whatever you want, but it's open to everyone. This is new. I've never done it. So we're going to see how it goes. Okay. So I'm going to add the link for the Clubhouse. You want to come on over and debrief, please do. Okay. Jason, how can everyone find you? Can you tell people anything imparting, what you want to, share?
Well, I would like to join you guys, but I have some guys in China that have been trying really hard because of the time zone issues and all that. Today, in a couple of hours, we're going live. I'm going live with them. They're called the Devil's Playground too. So,
wow, what a name.
So that's crazy. Yeah. So anyway, I'll be talking with those guys this evening. So I need to take a break, walk around, and play with dogs. Yeah. Okay. But no, I don't have any. Every one of my videos in the pinned comment has my links. If you want to know where anything my website basically covers everything. So,
okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll drop it in the description for people. So then, sometimes people just want to hyperlink over to something. So I'll do that. But everyone, I would tell you that you will binge watch his content. Okay. It is a wonderful pleasure. I thank you again, Jason. May God bless you. I know that we may have different beliefs, but this has been a true, a meeting of the mind.
I believe in God. I believe in God.
You believe in God. It's the Christian thing. No, I know you believe in God. We'll talk about that another time too, because it is something that I know a lot of people are having, the cognitive dissonance stuff, and it's triggering and stuff like that. But I think this was wonderful what you shared with us. It was generous, and I thank you and bless you. And I know people love this, but I will see what they're saying. Thank you all for joining in the chatmosphere. I know it's been fun and rock and rolling. And everybody go over and subscribe to Archaics. If you're not, I don't know why you aren't. Are you crazy? Cray cray? Go over there and get some knowledge, okay? And we will get together again, okay? Thank you so much, Jason. Take care. Bye, everybody. I'll see. I'm gonna put the link for the Clubhouse, okay? All right. So it is 1 minute. I have to pull it up here. Yeah. All right, Jason. We'll see you if you want to head out or whatever. I'm just gonna put the link and
until next time.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, everybody, I'm going to put the link for Clubhouse. If you want to join, it's different, right? This is going to be a little different. How can I put it in there? If you're on Clubhouse or you're not, it's very quick to get on Clubhouse, okay? It's not hard, okay? So it's www. How is that, everybody? Wasn't that amazing? Okay, so see if that comes across. And I just named it Invisible. I know some people don't like that, remedial college. I just say that because I don't take myself seriously. Okay. Oh, I didn't spell college. That's why it's remedial. Okay. Invisible. This is the Clubhouse. And GirlCode is going to be over. And okay, I want you guys to come on in. You could file in when you feel like it or right away. I'm going to go over right now, okay? And I will see you there. Thank you, everyone, and God bless you.